Welcome back, everyone, to the Epic Gardening Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest. We've been friends on Instagram for quite some time, Ariana Iapini. She is an edible garden designer and consultant and founder of the Birch Arbor Gardens. So, Ariana, I feel like it's long overdue that you're on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a fun opportunity to just, I think, share our mutual interest in transforming garden spaces and educating budding gardeners. I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. This whole week. Yeah, we've got a whole week. So why don't we start out with, where you're growing, a little bit of history around how you're growing so people can get a sense for where you're coming from.
Absolutely. So I'm in coastal Massachusetts, and that's, I think, technically we're zone 6A. That's always kind of changing, especially on the coast. There are a little bit of microclimates here that we tend to work with. But I've been gardening for, years. I grew up frequenting my grandparents' 27-acre farm in New Hampshire. That, I think, was really where the spark got ignited for my love of the garden. I just remember walking the cut flower garden with my grandmother, and I remember them kind of utilizing winter gardening in ways, and I was always amazed by my grandmother, who would run out in the middle of winter and flip over a hay bale and pull up some carrots.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was so beautiful. And and then years had passed, and I, after high school, I started volunteering on a local community farm that was also a market farm. So they supplied produce for some of the local farmers markets. And that was really where I gleaned all of my deep knowledge. I had started that process of gleaning knowledge in the garden space as far as how to grow and what works well regionally, and different techniques, was just walking side by side with seasoned farmers, for a few years. And I had that wonderful opportunity. And I think that was just invaluable in starting my journey as a gardener. And then my grandfather helped me build my first raised bed shortly after that, or around that same time. I think I was still volunteering when I installed my first raised bed garden, which was, I think it was 4 feet by about 27 feet in this tiny little strip of grass on the side of my old apartment. And I've been transforming spaces in every home I've lived in since to create gardens and edible spaces.
Got it. Yeah. Amazing. I wish I grew up gardening. I say that a lot when I have people on, because it sounds like the commonality with a lot of gardeners is that they did. I unfortunately did not, but it's cool that you have those memories. And we're talking today about transforming garden spaces. And so, you're a garden designer and a consultant, so this is what you do for a living. So I'm curious, when you say transforming, are you saying we're taking something that has nothing and bringing a garden in, or we're leveling up an existing garden? Like, how do you think about transforming a space like that?
Yeah, it could be. It's really kind of, I like to think of it as kind of a la carte. So it can really be whatever the particular gardener wants out of it. There have been opportunities for me to create brand new garden spaces out of grass, grass growing. I've done that a lot with my own properties over the years. But with my clients, some of the time it's refreshing an existing garden, and some of the time it's designing a brand new garden space from essentially just a sod lawn or whatever it might be that they have in their available space.
When you're talking about your own spaces, you said you've, transformed everywhere you've lived into a garden. I know you've got a pretty thriving one going on right now at the house you're at now. So maybe we could give a little context around that.
Yeah. So we moved to this house. We've been here about 2 growing seasons now. We're actually just a few miles from our last home, which is kind of nice because I've already had the opportunity to adapt my own growing techniques to the region, which is cool. And we're on a half-acre total property here, but the area where I'm actually growing food and pollinator spaces is really on about 0.15 acres of that land, because we're surrounded by old growth pines in the back of our house. And so we're very limited on sunlight back there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how different. I just had Amy, Front Yard Veggies, on the show a little bit ago, and we were talking about how different her new climate is compared to her old, because she has the context of growing over here in Southern California as well. And I just can't imagine having trees that big that shade would be a problem here. My problem is usually getting shade into the garden somehow.
Right. It's so interesting how different regions have. I really enjoyed that those episodes with Amy too, because I think it's a really cool contrast of how, different growing areas require those different techniques of growing in general. Totally.
Okay, well, tomorrow, guys, we're going to talk about reimagining edible landscaping. So it's a bit of a twist on the garden where, maybe you can just landscape with edibles instead of necessarily having to dedicate to a full garden space, or obviously you could just do both. So stay tuned. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.
Kevin here. Just a friendly reminder that most everything you hear here on the Epic Gardening Podcast is accompanied by a much more in-depth article over at epicgardening.com. So you can go to www.epicgardening.com, type in the search box whatever topic you want, and almost always there's going to be something that pops up. And if there's not, we are working on it. We are putting out in-depth gardening guides every single week. So head on over there if you're more of a reader and check it out. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.